Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Shourya Agarwal, who is the founder of Flam, which is a social metaverse platform. Hi Shourya, welcome to ELI.
Thanks, Priya. Great to be having here and having this conversation with you. Thanks.
To start with, I'd request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Sure. Hi guys. I'm Shourya. I'm the founder of Flam. At Flam, we are building the future of social network on the metaverse. So metaverse is going to be everything that internet has ever been, but a 100x more immersive way of connecting with your friends. The content, everything will be like 100x more immersive, but everything on internet will be on the metaverse. And yes, at Flam, we are building the social network on the metaverse.
The first question that comes to my mind, the metaverse, isn't it itself a social network and being built by a social network company?
Sure. So definitely, Priya. In fact, when you talk about the metaverse, it is going to be fundamentally social, right? Because that's the whole point. We spend most of our time on these rectangular screens on the internet doing a lot of stuff, right? But metaverse is going to be much more inclusive. It's going to be a very interesting and seamless blend of the virtual worlds that we live in and the real worlds that we live in. And that seamless blend is bound to be fundamentally social in whatever you do, right? So for example, even if it's gaming, even if it's education, everything will have a very interesting fundamental layer of social. But yes, what we are doing is we are not talking about building an educational platform. We're not talking about building something in fintech. We are very clear that what Facebook built on the internet, right? Facebook as a social network, what they built on the internet, we are actually building that sort of a social network on the metaverse with the principles of the metaverse, which is like 100x more immersion than internet. So yes, but you're right. Everything by default will have a fundamental layer of social in everything that is built on metaverse.
Okay. Can you help us understand what are the different modules or different things that you can do inside the platform that you are building?
Sure, Priya. So let me give you this very quick context about metaverse, and then we will dive deeper into what modules we are building.
Sure.
So metaverse is nothing fancy, even though everyone's talking about it and pretty much everywhere in trend. But I think it's not very fancy. It's a very simple form of internet, which is like 3D internet. Metaverse is equal to 3D internet, or maybe what I earlier said, 100x more immersive internet. Now, the immersion can happen when you shift the interfaces, right? So for example, if I talk about the interfaces that we currently use, either we are talking on this laptop right now, or we are, on this Zoom platform right now, which is like on a laptop screen, that's the interface. We spend most of our time on these smartphones, which is like this is the interface, right? This is the interface on which we do everything.
Hmm.
The limitation of these interfaces is that you cannot do anything immersive because the constraint is that these are flat interfaces which are like constrained in a rectangular format, and you have to do everything within the interface. So whether you are social networking, whether you are reading news, anything that you are doing, it has to be like 2D and constrained within these rectangular screens.
Okay.
Now the moment we talk about metaverse, we have to shift the interfaces from laptops and smartphones to camera first interfaces, right? So when I say camera first interfaces, we are no longer constrained within the rectangular screens. The moment I am on camera first interface, I open my camera and everything that I can see through the camera is the interface. So the entire world becomes the interface. Right?
Okay.
So metaverse, when we say is going to be like more immersive or 100x more immersive than internet, it means that we are shifting the interfaces from the current hardwares to camera first interfaces. So whether you talk about wearable glasses, whether you talk about VR hardwares, or whether you talk about your camera on the smartphones, everything is around camera first interfaces, right? So that's the context, right? So metaverse is going to be shifting the interfaces from what we are using today to camera or lens first interface.
Okay.
Now, the moment we talk about lens first interfaces, you talk about the real world and virtual world immersion, right? So when I open my camera and when I can basically point on something in the real world, I augment that real world with the virtual world, right? Or I basically have the context of virtual on the real world. That is the immersion that we talk about, right? So that's the key component. So on Flam, That's where we started. We started with everything on camera first interfaces. So if you look at the Flam application today, you can you can create augmented reality content, and then you can consume augmented reality content through the camera. So basically, camera is the centerpiece on which the entire application functions.
Okay.
So that's one specific and most fundamental component of Flam. Essentially, what Metaverse evolves into on Flam is going to be space-time complexity. So how you can travel across time zones, how you can travel across spaces, how you can become different avatars and spend your life in different virtual worlds. All of that is going to be a part of the Flam vision. But yes, I mean, the centerpiece is the camera first interface.
Okay. One thing I found on your website was Flam Card. Can you explain to us what is a Flam Card?
Sure. So Priya, I think that's exactly the product where, so Flam Cards, let me simplify this, because I think the last 2 minutes was what I was talking was more technical maybe. But the very simple idea of Flam Cards is, for the last 200 years, every one of us have printed pictures, right? We have printed pictures, we have sent greeting cards. And this is a very simple explanation of what Flam Cards is. Flam Cards basically lets you print immersive content or create immersive content. So basically, if I have a video with my friends that I click, right, I can save that video as a Flam card or as a Flam trigger. Now, when I say that I can save that particular video as a Flam card or a Flam trigger, it means that whenever I open my Flam app camera, and I point that camera on that particular trigger, the video will begin to play in the picture itself. It's like Harry Potter. If you've seen the movie, it's like Harry Potter moving images, right? That's the context. Now, the interesting part over here is users are creating this content. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about building the metaverse, when you talk about building the social network on the metaverse, one very critical thing to understand is we cannot create it. Like, as a company, we cannot create the metaverse. People will have to create it, right? So we have to have users on the platform who create the metaverse, who create the metaverse content, right? So all these Flam cards, all these Flam triggers that we're talking about, users generate this content. And for the very first time on Flam, users are generating augmented reality content. This is all augmented reality content, right? Because you are generating a content which is only accessible through a camera. Mm-hmm. So for example, if I create a Flam card and if you want to consume that Flam card, you will have to open your camera to consume that information, right? Which is like you are placing your camera or you are scanning the real world through your camera to consume that information, right? So Flam cards basically are a very simple product. It's like printing your videos or printing 3D elements that you want to basically preserve forever. And anybody can access that through a Flam app camera. Okay. So two things are happening here, just for like at a high level. One is users are creating augmented reality or metaverse content. And for the very first time, people like you and me are consuming content through a camera. Because this was never happening before, right? We generally use camera to click a picture, click a video, but we never use camera to consume a content. We always use camera to create a content, right? But on Flam, users then open their camera to consume content on the Flam card. That's the context. Okay.
The way I see it, I think we are just seeing the 5% or 10% of the vision you have for Flam through whatever has been manifested through Flam card. But can you tell me the bigger picture? What is it that you are trying to build, and how it will look like when it is at a mature stage, when you have a very mature version of Flam app?
Sure. Priya, I think this is in fact very interesting to understand. So Flam cards, you are absolutely right. Not even 5%, honestly. Flam cards is just the gateway to the metaverse, because Flam cards is a very, very simple product from user standpoint, right? You know, like you and I, we understand technology, we understand products, so we can talk about all the fancy things. But for the user, it has to be simple enough. It has to be so simple that they can use it, right? Because all of us understand that metaverse is intimidating. The moment you talk about metaverse, everyone has heard the word, right? It's a buzzword. But if you talk about, have you ever used any metaverse platform? What have you used, right? People have not. Like even people like you or me, we have not used, right? Because it's intimidating, it's hard. So Flam Cards is a very simple product to take you into the metaverse, to be basically the first step, right?
Okay.
Let me explain you the bigger picture, okay? And I'll give you some examples to make it very simple for the audience. Metaverse is basically space-time complexity. You have to solve, and sorry, I'm an engineering student, so I'm talking about more technically, but literally it's a space-time complexity as a problem statement, right? Let's understand time complexity that we will solve in our visionary product, right?
Okay.
Time complexity means that, for example, I'm giving you an instance of the feature. So if I'm with my girlfriend in a cafe, okay, I'm in a cafe with my girlfriend, we record that moment. Okay, so someone for us records the moment, and I don't want to call that moment a video because it's a volumetric video, it's an AR content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone records that content, that moment, and it just stays over there on that particular geolocation in that particular cafe. 5 years down the line, if I am around that particular area, I'll get a notification on my camera that, hey Shaurya, you were here 5 years back. You want to have a look? Camera guides me to that particular location, and when I go there, I can see the exact same thing, like literally the exact same thing. And that's not a video; it's a virtual world where I can see the same people exactly like that talking. And when I go and I touch my girlfriend, she'll get a notification 5 years in the future that, hey, your friend Shaurya is in your world 5 years back. Now that's going to be magical, absolutely magical. You will see exactly as you were 5 years back, literally time travel. So we call this particular feature time travel because it will just change the way how content functions forever, right? The other problem that we are very excited about is going to be space travel. So we need not be on the earth forever, right? So for example, if I don't want to be here, right? If I want to be in the Harry Potter world, I can just change the world around me. Okay. So when I open my camera today, what I can see behind me is an office, right? I can see the office setting. I can see myself. But if I want to be, say, Spider-Man in the Harry Potter world, I can imagine whatever I want in the metaverse, right? So if I want to be Spider-Man in the Harry Potter world, I can just change the setting of the camera to me being Spider-Man and the setting being Harry Potter world, and everything changes in the camera. So when I open my camera, I will look like the character I decided, and my world will change, and it will change contextually, right? So if there's this gate behind me, it will look like a gate in the Harry Potter world, right? So everything will change, and I will create content across spaces, across personalities. So our idea is very simple. We want to build a world where we can make people travel across time, travel across space, and they can be whatever they really want to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next question that I am interested to know about is the business side of it. How do we make money as a venture?
Sure. So Priya, see, there are multiple business models that can make money for us. Currently, the product that is live, that's also going to be a very interesting money making business for us. So, like people have been, as I mentioned, people have been printing pictures. If we just break it down to the use case, very simple use case, right? Across the world, people have been printing pictures, greeting cards for the last 200 years. Mm-hmm. It's a $50 billion market. It's a very, very large market. And our technology, our very simple technology will upgrade the entire market. So for example, you were printing pictures, now you can print videos. You were printing greeting cards, now you can print video greeting cards, or maybe 3D greeting cards, right? So for example, Hallmark makes a revenue of almost $10 billion every year just by printing greeting cards in the US, right? Now, who will want to print those greeting cards when you can have something like a Flam card where you literally have, when you scan that, you can have the video playing, you can have the 3D elements coming out of Flam card. A very different experience, right? Very, very personalized, very different. So I think that's a very, very large market in itself. And what we have been able to do is, this is again one very fundamental part of Metaverse. You have to crack the use cases. They have to be simple enough for users to understand. But more importantly, you will have to innovate the technology, because the technology doesn't exist. There is no infra for you to scale the platform for millions of users. So even for Flam Card, we worked on the technology bit for almost like 12 to 14 months in order to make sure that our technology is, because there was no tech before we started to work on it. Like very, very basic tech, not scalable enough, not sustainable enough. So yes, I mean, now that we have the tech, we can empower all the businesses. We have built the AR engine that can empower all the businesses basically. Right. So for example, Shutterfly prints a lot of pictures. We can just integrate our AR engine into their app, and they can also start producing Flam triggers or Flam cards. And that is the very interesting money making model for us. That's on the current part, right? But the idea eventually is to have metaverse advertising, because that's like all AR, VR advertising, which is going to replace the internet advertising today, and essentially the NFT marketplace that we plan to develop on the metaverse. So yeah, multiple models, because we are innovating on technology every time we launch a new product. So I think that technology also has the power to make a lot of business for us.
Tell
This is
us
this is this is also similar to just to give more context. This is also similar to how companies like Snapchat and Apple function. They launch something like Snapchat it makes a lot of money with their camera SDK, with their AR engine, right? Though what we get to use is the Snapchat consumer app, but the technology is so amazing that they can power a lot of businesses and make a lot of money over there.
okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the initial days of building Flam? So, how did it all start? How did this idea came to you, and why did you choose to, start something like this?
Sure, Priya. So I think I got a handwritten letter from my dad when I was in my final year at college. Very rare, right? Because we are engineering students, so nobody writes us a letter. The ratio is very different in the engineering college, right? So I was in my final year at BITS when I got that letter, and it was very interesting because I was reading that letter almost every other day because it was in front of me, and then I used to read it almost every other day. It was about how life is going to unfold now after the graduation and stuff like that. But I realized if the same piece of text was sent to me on any social media, for example, Facebook DM, WhatsApp, Instagram, I would have either ignored the message or maximum would have read it once, right? Because that's the longevity of discussions and content on digital media today. I also realized that every few years, social media changes, right? I started with Yahoo Messenger, then Orkut, then Facebook, then Instagram, maybe Snap, TikTok, whatever. But it keeps on changing every 3 to 4 years, right? Because that's the time frame, right? When you are attached to something. The reason is because everything is digital. Every part of that social media is digital. So we basically, when I got that letter, I realized that there is a lot of power in the real world. Like if you integrate the real world with the virtual world experiences, because we live in the real world, right? So we cannot get detached with the real world that easily. So you have to integrate the virtual worlds with the real worlds to build a social network that stays forever, right? So if you have to build a social network that stays for the next 100 years, you will have to leverage the real world that we live in, because we do not get detached with the real world. But if it's everything virtual, like Facebook, Instagram, all of these social apps, right? You keep on changing. You don't care about Orkut anymore. You don't care about Yahoo Messenger anymore. That's the power of the real and virtual world blending, and that's what everyone is now calling the metaverse. So I think that's how we started. I mean, think about it, right? So we've changed so many houses, right? Maybe in our lifetime, but the pictures that we click, the physical pictures, we keep taking them with us, right? For like 50 years, 100 years. So that's
right. What are the different challenges that you have faced while building and growing this venture? I'm sure there will be some major ones.
100%, 100%. I think it's not possible if someone says that there were no challenges. But I think I would like to mention this first thing, so is that I mean, if you are really obsessed, if you care about the problem statement, everything else is just one other thing in the whole journey, right? But only start if you care about something very deeply, because it's going to be a long journey. It's not a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year game. If you're there for building a large business, large impact, it has to be a long journey. So start only if you care about the problem statement, if you really care about, if you're obsessed about the vision. But yes, I mean, if you talk about a challenge, raising the first round was definitely, raising the first round as in when we wanted some money to build the technology, because we were very new, we just graduated and did not work anywhere basically. So around that time, we realized that we just cannot go and ask for money from any angel investor or anyone. We have to do some work. So we did some work for 6 months, 8 months, and then that is when we raised the round. So it was very quick in that way. The other thing that is challenging, I think, throughout the journey, and I think this will be throughout, is to work with the right people, right? I mean, you have it's not just about money. I mean, that's what I've realized. It's just not about money. It's about the right leadership team. It's about the right people and right culture in the team to build the vision, because it's hard, right? It's definitely hard. You want to build the next big social network. There are just 10 large networks in the world. So I think, yes, maintaining that energy, that consciousness throughout, and having the right people, I think that's the most critical thing.
Speaking of right people and the team, I had a chance to go through your LinkedIn page and I see that there are 41 employees for at Flam. Can you tell us how did you find these people, considering there is a very less number of people who understand the whole technology, the metaverse piece, and you'll not find many senior level people that have any idea about metaverse, to be honest. So how did you first of all find them, and then how did you orient them to help you on the bigger picture?
Sure, Priya. I think very interesting question, and then you have put this out very interestingly. But see, I'm very clear when we are talking about building the company, right? And that's the clarity you need. But we are not here to build another unicorn or maybe a $5 billion company. We are literally here to build the next big social network from India, right? And that's a $1 trillion opportunity. Like Facebook was the fifth company to become a $1 trillion company, and the fastest one as well, right? I mean, so the opportunity is massive. It's like it's a massively big opportunity, and that's what you have to see. You have to build the knowledge first, right? So if you want to hire the right people, you have to make sure that they are on the same page. They understand. They get the vision that you are talking about, right? So I think all of us in the leadership team, me and the other co-founders, even the leadership team that we have hired or the leaders that we have hired recently, all of them, we share the vision very strongly that, okay, this is what we have to build. And once you get people excited on the vision, and then how you're going to implement it, what's the execution, what's the roadmap, it becomes fairly easy. It's all about knowledge. I think uh, everything is about knowledge. The knowledge that I have at this point, if I transfer that knowledge to you, I think you will get as excited as me when you are talking about Flam to someone, right? So I think we just make sure that that knowledge doesn't just stay with me. It has to stay with everyone in the company, not just the founders or leadership team, even with the interns. If everyone has the knowledge, I mean, we get so much of inbound, honestly, because people just know how exactly we are building.
As an
So that's one. And I think while hiring the leadership teams, we hired recently the director of marketing from TikTok, the director of, this guy was heading the Asia Pacific sales for Snapchat for 3 years. We were able to hire these folks because we have a very genuine vision and a very clear roadmap. That's when these people get excited to join your team. So I think that clarity of thought definitely is needed. You have to spend time, but if you are clear and if you transfer that clarity, even the best of people would like to jump and build alongside.
Okay. The next question is again around the team. Can you tell us how do you stay energetic enough to drive yourself and the team of around 40 people? And what happens when you lose your focus, or when you feel tired, just restless, doing it over and over again, and you're not able to continue?
Sure. So I think, in fact, this is one of the sessions I was taking with some other team members earlier, in the evening yesterday. Energy is nothing, right? And I talk about energy a lot because everything is good. Skills, marketing, tech, product, everything is good. But if you really want to build a company which is like $100 billion company, you have to make sure that you have the right energy at every single point in time. I mean, you just cannot have any negative energy. You have to have the right obsession and right energy at every point in time. And you rightly asked, energy is nothing, Priya, but I think energy is the function of consciousness. If you're conscious enough about everything that's happening, if you're conscious enough the vision, about the roadmap, what's the everything, you have to be like absolutely conscious, and then you will have more energy than ever. And consciousness is to some extent the function of knowledge. If you have knowledge, if you are conscious, I think you will always have the energy to execute. All the leaders, right? If you read history, if you talk about Gautam Buddha, if you talk about any famous leader, all of them are highly energetic because they are extremely knowledgeable. They have extreme consciousness and extreme knowledge. So that's very critical, I think.
What would happen if you wake up tomorrow and find out that the company you are building is not operational anymore? It has gone bankrupt, or the premise on which it was built, it's wrong. What would you do?
See, that's the beauty, right? That's the beauty, that it won't happen overnight. I mean, it sounds that it happened overnight, but if you have the context, if you are conscious throughout the journey, I think you will get to know this like 8 months, 10 months in advance, right? And then you can always change the course. You can always change things. So I think this will not happen, at least with Flam, because you have to spend time, you have to think every single day what's happening, what's going wrong. You have to be paranoid, right? I think if you're not paranoid, you cannot build large businesses or successful enough businesses. So I think because I'm paranoid enough, the question that you asked might not happen exactly with me. So I'll get to know at least like 6 months in advance ki, haan, bhai, there's a problem, and I think we will solve it in the coming months. So yeah, but I think everything is Flam for me. So yeah, I'll solve it much earlier.
Okay. What is the meaning of entrepreneurship for you? How would you define the term entrepreneur? Who is an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneurship is, according to me, entrepreneurship is just being genuinely obsessed about solving a problem or building a company that you really care about. It's just that genuine obsession. You don't care about anything else. Because everything else will happen. It's just a function of genuine obsession about building something that you really care about. I think those are the people who are entrepreneurs, and that could be anything. But you have to have that genuine obsession to build.
And my final question, what are the different lessons that you have learned as an entrepreneur that even we can apply to our ventures and our lives as well? What are some of the major ones that you have learned over time?
Leverage, like you need to have the leverage, and I think everything is people. So you leverage people, relationships. I think everything is around, everything is a function of right people who are building alongside, whether it's your investors, whether it's your team members, your clients. Everyone is like people, right? At the end of the day, it's just people. So I think if you optimize on the right set of people you work with, and if you leverage the relationships, I think you can build anything you really want.
Okay. On this note, I think we have come to the end of the session. Thanks for your time, Shaurya, and our best wishes for Flam. I think you are building a very futuristic and wonderful venture.
Thank you so much for your nice talking to you. Great conversation. Thanks a lot.